Hello, this is Daniel Ritchie, and today I'm going to be talking about using Lightwave and doing some path trace rendering in Lightwave. Now, Lightwave does not have a built-in path tracer, such as the one in Blender. That would be the Cycles renderer for Blender. However, it does have a global illumination renderer, which uses radiosity. There is sort of a fine distinction, but it's worth noting because there are some additional effects you can achieve by using path tracing, such as caustics and surfaces that are not completely Lambert in nature. Um, and I can show you the difference here. This was rendered with Lightwave's global illumination renderer, the radiosity renderer inside of Lightwave. But you can see it looks very clean. It's very realistic looking. The shading looks very natural. There's soft shadows. There's bounce light. All those things you would expect to be in a global illumination renderer, or most of them anyways. Now I'm going to show you another scene in Lightwave we did with our makeshift path tracing. We used a couple of tricks to get this done. I've done a series in the past where I explained the fundamental ideas of how we came to the conclusion that this could be done in Lightwave. We started out using nodes, and then we switched to some tricks using ray tracing. And now we're going to even simplify that further. Basically, we had used a bumpy surface to simulate a Lambert surface, or a surface where light rays are reflected in every direction. But here we use Lightwave's built-in blurry reflections. Creates a very nice looking Lambert surface, or a partly Lambert surface. Now, the idea with path tracing is that basically all the light in a scene, all the light on a surface of any given point, is accumulation of the lights that's reflected from within the scene. Basically, everything in a scene, there's no distinction between lights and geometry. Everything is geometry. If you need a light in a scene, you build a light object, such as this light plane we have up here. We place it in the scene, and that's our light source. There's no Lambert shading. There's no soft. There's no shadow maps. There's no ray trace shadows. It's all done basically by one algorithm. Basically by sending out multiple rays, accumulating what those rays find, what the lighting is at the end of that ray, and that's it. There's no Phong shading. There's none of that crazy stuff. It's just a very simple algorithm, but it produces very, very realistic results. As you can see here, instead of that very smooth looking, let me go back. Instead of this very smooth looking, what we call a Lambert shaded surface, where lights are reflected from every possible direction, in this case we have a somewhat reflective and somewhat Lambert surface. It's about half and half. You can see some reflectivity, but you can also see the lights being diffused quite a lot as well. There's also a hot spot here. This is not a specular spot. This is actually a reflection of the light in the scene. It's not a trick of the software that creates that specular spot. It's an actual reflection, but it's also soft because we have some randomness in our ray traced reflections. Same with these long blurry or streaky reflections here. They are it looks a little bit lighting, but it also looks a little bit reflective. And if we go to this surface, this ground plane object, we can actually make this more or less reflective. We're doing this by using the blurry reflection. I said if I overdrive this to say 10,000, you'll see this looks very much, a lot more like that very soft shaded, that very smooth shaded plane we had in the radiosity render. You can see the lighting is more spread out, and we still get all the soft shadows and everything, but in this case, we actually have control over this. We can actually make it 100% reflective as well, or, somewhere in between. So that's one of the benefits of this technique. So let's go ahead and start with a new scene. Let's see. I'll do this very quickly. Let's see. Clear scene. And I actually did the text in Blender. You could certainly do it in Lightwave, but I'm kind of in a hurry, and this gives me a few options that let me do text a little more quickly. So I'm going to add a excuse me, a text object, press tab on the keyboard, and this is not shameless plug or anything. And then all we have to do now is go into our properties, and you can get a bevel from this, of course, and extrude it all pretty much in one step. In Lightwave, we'd have to go through a few more steps. So basically, all I have to do now is rotate this into submission, and if I can remember how to do that. This is not my natural 3D environment. Let's see. I got to select that thing first. I should be able to do that, as we say on Earth. This should work. Okay, well, here we go. It is selected. Oh, here we go. Nothing selected. It's telling me there's nothing selected for some reason. Oh, I'm still in edit mode. Okay, so, so much for, doing this quickly. But, whoops. I will eventually get this. Anyways, we'll go ahead and export this to Lightwave. Let's see. Before we do that, we have to convert the object to a mesh from curve meta surface text. Okay, I think that's done it. And we'll go to File, Export. I'll do it as a wavefront object. Call it something. Export it. And we'll start from scratch in Lightwave. Let's see, load object. And I think it was in documents. I called it demo something or other. Alright, so there is our text object. And now that we're in Lightwave, we can work in a way that we're more familiar with, hopefully, using keyboard shortcuts and everything to get this done more quickly, which is good. The first thing we're going to do is turn off everything. We don't want to see this surface. We don't want Lambert shading. We don't want anything. Let me go into Surface Editor, click on one of these things here, click on Diffuse, turn it all the way off. Turn, let's see, Specular all the way off. All that stuff. Same for the other surface. Specular all the way off. Diffuse all the way off. And since it came from Blender, I think diffuse was already all the way off. And for now, that is it. We're going to turn off our light in the scene as well. Make this 0% and make the light turn ray tracing off, turn all those flags off. That's just to show that we have no actual lights in the scene. Let me add, for the sake of argument, a ground plane. Let's see, under modeling tools, ground plane, default settings is fine. Leave it right where it's at for now, and I'm going to add one more plane for a light, and I'll make it 1 meter. And okay, I'm going to move it up a little bit. Let's see. There we go. And we'll probably want to make these both double-sided at some point. I should be on auto key create. Okay, let's go into our surface editor and start making this scene work. First thing we have to do is make this a VPR render. We should see nothing at this point. Let's take that light rectangle and make it luminous. I'll turn it up to 100 for now. We might want to change that later. And I'm going to make it double-sided just to make it easy to work with. And there it is. Okay, now let's make our ground plane. Let's see, make sure diffuse is turned off so we can't. Like I was saying, we're going to make sure diffuse is off on the ground plane, so we don't want to be there any confusion. There's none of Lightwave's internal shading taking place whatsoever within this. We're going to be using entirely a reflection gag in this scene. So we're also going to show that. Let's see, under render globals, we're going to show that global illumination is not on, and we're actually going to go to render and set ray recursion level to something a little bit more realistic, like 2. That'll give us like 2 bounces of light, and leave everything else off. Okay, so now we're ready to start the magic, as they say. I'm going to find the text surface and start giving this scene some reflectivity. I'm going to set this to like 90% reflectivity. If we went to 100%, fine, but we want it to lose some energy. No, energy is always lost, they say, so we're going to lose a little bit of the reflectivity in the scene. We right there, we already start to see some light on that front surface. Let me go to environment, and I think by default it's set to 6% reflection blurring because I started with a new scene. I'm going to change that to like 50% for now. That means the light on the surface is going to be very diffused, but not quite like a Lambert surface where it's diffused in every possible direction. 50% is a good balance. It's going to be somewhat reflective, somewhat diffuse, and somewhat reflective. So that's all we're doing for now is reflectivity. Now I'm going to do the same for the other part of this text surface. I'm going to give it some reflectivity, say 90%, and again with the environment, I'm going to make it like 50 or 60% for now. All right, so that's a pretty good start. Once we put the ground plane, make it reflective, we're going to start to see a lot more in this scene. So we'll start getting more bounce light and all that. So let's find the ground plane. Here it is. Make it somewhat reflective. I'm not going to make it as reflective as the other surfaces. This is the ground. It doesn't have to be 100% reflective. So as you see, we're getting kind of a sharp reflection right now. Let's go to environment. Let's set that to 500, and that will really start to diffuse the light within this scene. And as you can see, the scene is still very dark. Remember, we set this surface to only luminosity of only 100%. That's not a very bright light. Let's set that to 500% and see what happens. Luminosity is 500%. Now it's starting to look more like a light source. Wait for it to resolve a few moments, and still not much to look at. If we worked with this, I think we could get somewhere. We would probably want to make this move this light so we get it somewhere where it's really casting some light on our scene. Well, that's still not much to look at. All right, so let's put in a little backdrop light in here as well. Let's go to let's see, not render globals, but let's see. Let's go to backdrop options and just put in some gradient backdrop. And hey, look at that. Now we can really see that we're getting some global illumination in here. I mean, we're really seeing that light reflected inside the scene. Let's see, our text is penetrating through our ground plane a little bit. Let's fix that. All right, now you can really see that this is starting to look a little more like what it's supposed to look like. You can really see these specular hot spots where this how would you call that rectangle, that light rectangle we made, that light object we made, is really causing some hot spots on this text now. Let's go to let's do a little tweaking on this either way. Let's put some color into this. But even now, you're really seeing there's soft shadows on the ground. There's like ambient occlusion happening inside the crevices of these objects. There's specularity. There's surface shading, all that stuff. And you know what? All this is happening because of one algorithm. There's no calculations being done for specularity or ray trace shadows or any of that stuff. We have all that stuff turned off. As you remember, this is just a result of reflected light and how much scattering of the light we're causing from the surface itself. So let's add some surface color to some of these. Let's make the outside of this text a color. The first thing we have to do is give it a color. Let's make it red or maybe orange. Hit OK. That's not going to do anything because we are 100% reflective. What we have to do is go into the Advanced tab, I believe it is, and use this color highlight. And this will let us blend some of that color back in that's on the surface. If we do 100%, it's going to be 100% of that color. I like to leave it about 50 or 75%. And it usually looks pretty good. So that's how you can add color into some of the objects, because otherwise it's just only going to be reflecting the light in the scene. Now, if you look at this, we're seeing this color reflected on the ground. Not only is it reflecting the light, but it's reflecting this color as well. So that's basically it. That's the first steps to creating it's not 100% real path tracing, but it's a step ahead of just basic radiosity anyways, in the sense that you have control over the diffuse on your surface by using that reflection blurring. And it also gives you some other possibilities as well, and it helps you think of how the light rays are interacting with your object. It's not it's a little more of a simple model. You don't have to have a special case for everything, so it makes you really think about how simple basically light passing through a scene interacts with the scene, and it makes it simpler to work with and think of how the physics of it work. So hope this has been somewhat educational and interesting. Hopefully it's simplified the way you think of ray tracing in general, and maybe you can take the ideas that we presented here and really trick them out for your own scene. Mind you, we didn't use any plugins, we didn't use any nodes or anything. We just used a few simple tricks using only reflectivity, basically. No other tricks we've used in this scene, and it gave you really a lot of different rendering ideas that you would normally have to do extra calculations on. Soft shadows, caustics, soft reflectivity is something we're using built into Lightwave. But anyways, most of those things anyways are things that are coming for free, not for free, but for as part of this trick anyways, without having to have extra calculations in it. So thanks for watching. Please join us on let's see, PD Howler channel on YouTube. We're always presenting tutorials on creating artwork and computer techniques in general. So also join me on my personal website, which is squirreldome.com. We have some we have our product Howler, of course. We have a few plugins for Lightwave and some other things like that. So thanks again, and talk to you later.